Hey people, so I always remembered that if I was going to ever set up a YouTube account, one video I would like to make would actually be about the subject of technophobia. That is, people having not exactly a fear of technology, but finding it quite hard to get their head around, especially digital technology. And I'd like to speak a bit about that because I have experienced it in the past. Firstly, today, let me just say what I believe my sort of level is. I believe I'm roughly average, maybe a little bit below in some areas, maybe a little bit above in others. There's a lot of things I can do on a computer. I could send an email, receive an email, post links, obviously upload YouTube videos now, which was actually, I have to say, a much easier process than I thought, although the webcam was already installed into my laptop, so that's great. And quite a number of other things. So that certainly would be around average, or maybe more than what some people can do. On other areas though, things just go over my head. Now, I've tried to set up a Skype account a few times. My experience of that has been that whenever I've set it up, there's usually been a message saying congratulations, you've got an account, etc, etc, etc. But then all I see is a homepage full of advertisements, and I just can't get into my own account. Like, I can see it says I've got an account, but then I can't see where the account is, because I'd expect to see sort of my profile, etc. Similar to a YouTube channel or something like that, but Skype, I really can't get my head around. I also joined a Chinese social network, it's like called QQ. That wasn't very simple to start up. Obviously Facebook and Google are banned in China, so QQ is a good alternative, but an alternative that I use sometimes. But again, that wasn't that simple to set up. But I'd like to just talk about sort of broader issues here. I imagine a lot of the people watching this video will either be technophobes, will have had experience of technophobia, or there may be a third category where someone is very, very knowledgeable on technology and they're just interested in this. One thing I would say, I get quite frustrated, very frustrated actually, when people say, oh, it's easy, it's easy. You know, nothing is easy if you don't know how to do it. The same people who say that's easy, I could give them a comprehensive questions, for example, about the wars of the Three Kingdoms, or the spring and autumn period in China, or something like that, and they may be clueless. Everybody has their own area where they know more about. Everyone has a sort of interest where they will know more about than the average person. My interests happen to be in geography. I have a very good knowledge on geography, history, politics, not every aspect of politics, but sort of political history, a lot of aspects of politics. But for example, I know very little about economics. I'm not an expert in economics, I don't pretend to be. I don't know much about business. And like I say, technology, I'm somewhere wavering in the middle. I don't always feel particularly confident with technology. Sometimes I find it very frustrating, but I'd like to just talk about a few things around this. Firstly, to those sometimes very smug people who say, oh, it's easy. It is easy if you're used to doing it, you've been doing it all your life and it's your field, then yeah, of course it's going to be easy for you. But try and appreciate for another person what you regard as easy may not necessarily be so. And I don't accept this thing, you know, some people say, oh, if I could do it then anyone can. That's not the case, because everyone's unique. Everyone has their own areas of interest, their own areas of knowledge. I know what mine are, and I know what mine isn't. And you know, we can always try and develop our knowledge in areas where we don't know, but I don't think there should be an obligation to be as knowledgeable as other people. I am also a little bit wary about the way technology is becoming, there's this sort of idea that it's becoming mandatory. And some people will look at you with as if you've got two heads if you admit, look, that goes over my head. I don't know what I'm doing here. And some people are very patronising about it. Then you get other people, decent people, who do know a lot about it, and they do try to explain. But again, they speak in terminology which for a layman, which for someone who doesn't know that, it's very difficult. I've always found that hard, because on one hand you want to appreciate their help. On the other hand, you feel you constantly have to ask it, what is this? What is this? I don't get it. You know, the first thing I would say about computers, a lot of terminology in computer technology, IT, is quite strange. Now, traditionally, when you say the word window, I think about this. You see that over there? I think about a glass window. When I think about a menu, I think about a menu in a restaurant to eat off. And cookies? What on earth is a cookie? I always thought it was a sort of biscuit with chocolate chips in it. I thought that was what a cookie was, or a cute name for a dog. But when I see messages saying your browser does not enable cookies or this sort of thing goes over my mind. Now I know what windows are roughly. I know what a menu is. That's like the contents page. But there are still quite a lot of areas that go over my head. And I do resent this notion that people who have struggles with technology, including people much bigger struggles than me, are somehow Luddites, or they're anti-technology. It's not so much that those people are rejecting technology, it's that they are just finding it hard to follow. But, you know, I also think we have to be wary about something. Now, let me make this clear. Obviously, I've made a lot of YouTube videos, and I wouldn't make them if I didn't think it was worthwhile, if I didn't think there was a purpose in doing so, and I'm going to continue doing that. I think it's wonderful. I think technology in many ways can be absolutely fantastic. I mean, you know, the idea of me uploading this video, and people from potentially all over the world looking at this video, looking at what I have to say, I think that's wonderful, and I'm very, very grateful for it. It's a great thing, which would have been unthinkable 10 years ago, at least in this way. So technology can be a great thing. It can also save lives. It can do a whole range of different things. It can connect people. So I'd say there's certainly many pros in there. But on the con side, I think it can destroy human communication. Quite often when I go to a friend's house, she's often playing a computer game, and her mind's completely taken up by that computer game, and it's very difficult to communicate with her, and I've had similar issues with other people. I think sometimes digital technology can actually be a barrier for human communication, and it doesn't necessarily always make things easier. Certainly if you have a slow computer, that can make life very stressful. Goodness knows I've got experience of that, which is why I'm very grateful for this laptop. But for years I was working on desktop PC, and that really, it was deeply frustrating. I just found that very, very, it was a real nuisance. But I just like to throw a thought out. I don't think that we should make it an obligation for everybody to know computers inside out. Obviously it's useful to have some knowledge, but I do sympathise with older people and younger people who aren't so familiar with this, who then, for example, when you have job interviews and the only option is to go on Skype, I think that's unfair, because someone who may have technical knowledge can do that, but then what if that person has less experience in a particular job? I mean, I remember applying for a teaching job, and they wanted me to set up a Skype account, and I had to be honest with them, and I said, look, I'm trying my best here, I'm trying to set it up, but my software just doesn't allow me to do that. I did get a phone interview, but I'm sure that destroyed my chances. And yet I had teaching experience that I'm sure some of the other candidates didn't have. So I think making digital technology mandatory for success is really not a healthy precedent. I think it could be very useful, and we should certainly make the most of it, but to make that mandatory as the only way you can succeed in life, I think that's very unfair. Also, relying too much on digital technology means you're not really seeing the real world, you're not getting out, you're not meeting people face to face. you're not experiencing nature, etc., etc. And I would, whilst I appreciate digital technology and I certainly use it a lot, you know, I love watching YouTube videos as much as anyone, Googling things, etc. We have to be very careful not to let that become a barrier to seeing the world. I mean, quite often, you know, people like Mark Zuckerberg and so on point out the fact that digital technology, social networking can inform us about the world. And I agree with that, it can. But we also have to be careful that we don't spend our whole lives behind a screen. I mean, I would say if you're spending more than 5 or 6 hours behind a screen per day, that's probably too much. I'm no medical expert, but I would say it's probably too much. And I've heard about young people in Japan and China who are actually addicted to the internet, addicted to gaming. Obviously gaming is slightly different, that's not, well, not really, it still involves digital technology. But I hate this social stigma that if you have problems with technology, then you're doomed unless you learn. That makes me uncomfortable. I think we should make the most of technology, but this thing about making it mandatory for people to know it inside out, I'm very uncomfortable with that. That's a slightly dictatorial sort of stance, and that denies freedom, actually. Forcing people to be technical, forcing people to be as into digital technology as the experts, that's just... I mean, what you have to understand, if you're someone who works with computers every day, a lot of the terminology really is hard for someone like me to understand. Now, I'm not a complete novice, I can do a lot of things on the computer, but I do remember a time when it was quite overwhelming and I hated the idea of going on a computer. Again, I'm not a Luddite, I'm not by no means anti-technology. I honestly believe it could do a lot of positive things, and I'm not one of these people that say, oh, we should never go on. I think it can have a lot of positive influence, but at the same time, I think we have to be careful to get a sort of healthy balance, and also not impose on people who really, A, don't particularly want it, and B, they may be knowledgeable in other areas, but if they don't know about technology or digital technology, I don't think they should be bullied into accepting it. I don't think they should be bullied into sort of understanding it. And I do think it's important to get this video out, because obviously so many people online know what they're doing. I know what I'm doing insofar as uploading videos, but I know there's a lot of things that go over my mind, and that's very overwhelming. Then I feel frustrated and angry, and yeah. So this is just basically a thought on my views on technophobia. It's worth bearing in mind, 200 years ago, the concept of technophobia was the Luddite Rebellion in England, which was when the Industrial Revolution arrived in this country. Agricultural workers resented the new machines. They believed it cost jobs. And in a fury, they actually vandalised the machines, and that was called the Luddite Revolts. There was also the Swing Riots. So actually there's quite a long history of this, but I'm not one of these people who reject technology. I just reject the sort of social conformity of it. The idea that we must be into it in order to be cool or something. I mean, granted, when I meet people, I do ask them, are you on Facebook, are you on... And granted, it does make it easier to communicate with people, rather than phoning all the time. I mean, for one thing, it's free and phoning isn't. So I would say to people, if you don't have a Facebook account, it can help to keep in contact with people, and I think Facebook is more simple than some other sites to set up. But that's my thoughts, really. I'm sure some of the people watching this video are technophobes. What I would say to those people is, trust me, I'm not that far ahead of you. Don't feel bad about yourselves. It's not a crime not to know about technology. Technology can be useful, but just take it slowly, learn one thing at a time, and don't feel under social pressure, or don't be bullied into this, because you don't have to. It's useful, definitely useful, and can be very fun when you get the hang of it, but it really isn't everything. Okay,